this is Ana-Christina sharing tools of hope with the Resilience Builders. We're going to be talking about reducing communication conflict, part 1. So I'm anticipating doing a little bit of a series on this. We're going to share just some super quick tools for you right now. The first tool to reduce conflict in communication, the overarching umbrella tool, is awareness of yourself. So we're going to hold this idea of the very first place we go is to know that we can't change the other person. As poorly as they acted, as piss poor as what they did was, the bottom line is we can't control them. We can only control ourselves, our responses and our reactions. What we want to do then is start with that. So step 1 would be heightening our awareness of how we typically respond in a conflict. So for example, I would chunk up and in my thoughts, and I would say, what are some of the highest ideas of conflict? Well, typically we respond with fight, flight, or freeze. What is my typical response? That's where I'm going for the awareness. What is my typical response? Is it that I fight? Is it that I flight? I book it out of here, or that I freeze? I just go numb and just don't say a word. Don't look like anything's happening. That's the first level of awareness, okay? It's not the first step. The first step is the awareness. The second level of awareness within that step is to pay attention to where it's showing up in your body. You're paying attention to where it's showing up in your body. Some people get an instant headache. Some people, their face flushes. Some people go pale. Some people have a bloom of color just come across their cheeks when they're super upset. For me, I feel a knot in my throat sometimes. Some people like a pit in their stomach. Okay, we're trying to pay attention now to a little bit more detail of what's happening in our own body. Once we do that, here's the bonus star. Here's the bonus gold star that you can even dive deep into that a little bit further and get quiet with that part and say, hey, what am I actually really feeling? So it may be that I have a knot in my throat. It might be that I have a pain in my head. It might be that I have a knot in my stomach. But what really is the emotion that is being symbolized or exhibited by that pain in my body? I know that sounds a little woo-woo. And that's why this is gold star, okay? This is gold star, kind of a bonus thought, is what really is the emotion that's underneath that? What really is the emotion that's underneath that? It might be intense fear. It might be mild embarrassment. It might be humiliation. It might be hurt. It might be sadness. What really is the emotion that's underneath that? So the first step is the awareness that you are carrying into the conflict. The second step is the awareness of a possibility of needing to set a boundary. So if somebody is encroaching on your boundaries, or if you have allowed your boundaries and your gates to be wide open and you've allowed people to encroach on your boundaries, then you may very well have a boundary issue. And it's not just with other people. It may be with yourself. It may be that you need to set a boundary with yourself and say, gosh, I feel like flying off the handle on this person and I'm just going to yell and scream. And the boundary with myself is that I'm going to take 10 deep breaths. I'm going to take an adult timeout. I am going to take a moment to think some thoughts that get my head screwed back on tight, okay? Instead of allowing your head to fly off the handle. So it might be setting a boundary with yourself. It might be setting a boundary with others. That's the second step. The first step is awareness of how you're going into this conflict or how you're finding yourself in this conflict. Number 2 is that there might be a need to set a boundary with yourself or with others. And number 3 is a very cool little nugget, a little tool, a little gem that I found in a book called The Lasting Promise. Please forgive me, I don't have the author's name right now. And the gem is a starting boundary script. A starting boundary script. Is it the entire script that you use to set boundaries? Not necessarily. And can you start with it? Yes. And depending on how hot the situation is, in other words, if it's 2 calm people, you and the other person, this script can start the conversation, okay? Here it is though. It could be a script inside of your head that would help you get an instant mental reset because you're thinking of things in a different way. Or it could be a script that could actually come out of your mouth. Okay, here it is. Here's the little gem, X, Y, Z. What? X, Y, Z. Found in a book called The Lasting Promise, and it's part of the speaker-listener technique. You can look that up and probably find this tool, the speaker-listener technique. So here's the deal, X, Y, Z. It's a little gem. When you X in situation Y, I feel Z. When you X in situation Y, I feel Z. So an example of this might be, when you interrupt me in front of your boss, I feel blank, embarrassed, I feel hurt, I feel angry, I feel upset, I feel frustrated. Some of those are words that are, and that's a whole nother lesson, 10,000-foot words. Some of them are actually the emotion. Frustrated, anger, those aren't necessarily the core emotion. A lot of times the core emotion is underneath the anger, underneath the frustration, or underneath the stress. But the bottom line is, what we want to do is get to the emotion. I felt embarrassed. I felt humiliated. I felt hurt. I felt betrayed. I felt abandoned, whatever the emotion might be there. Okay, so that is a boundary conversation starter. It might be just in your own head to get an instant reset, or it might be actually a boundary conversation starter that you can share with the other person, especially if they're a relatively safe person to set a boundary with and practice setting boundaries with. Is that helpful? Right? So we get to ask these questions. How am I showing up in this conflict conversation? How am I going to show up in this conflict communication? How do I want to be in this conflict? What's the most important thing, and how will I show that? We get to ask radically resilient questions as we go into these conflict situations, don't we? Yeah, we get to. This is Ana-Christina, and I will see you in the next video. We're sharing tools of hope with the Resilience Builders. Take care. Bye.